Hello, and welcome to the Informatica webcast, a unified data architecture to drive customer insights with a marketing data lake. Your questions should be submitted through the question button located at the top of the console and will be taken at the end of today's presentation. We will get to as many questions as we can, and if there are any that have not been answered, someone will get back to you. All right, so thanks again for joining today's webinar. About a unified data architecture to drive customer insights with a marketing data lake. We're seeing that organizations are looking to modernize their data architectures to take advantage of the wealth of data from customer and prospect transactions, social, mobile, and Internet of Things, so that marketers can increase their campaign ROI, increase customer acquisition and retention, and ultimately increase sales. I'm your host for today, John Haddad, Senior Director, Product and Technical Marketing at Informatica. And with me as presenters are Amr Awadallah, the founder and CTO of Cloudera, Todd Walter, America's CTO at Teradata, and Darshan Joshi, Senior Vice President of Engineering at Informatica. We have several interesting topics to cover over the next 45 minutes, followed by some Q&A. The first topic, Amr Awadallah, will cover the business objectives and use cases related to a marketing data lake. Then Todd Walter will discuss how modern marketing analytics requires a unified data architecture. Finally, followed by Darshan Joshi, will describe the role of big data management for a marketing data lake. Amr, I'd like to hand it off to you.
Thank you. So let's move on to the next slide. There is three external factors that are making it harder to market. And these factors are first that customers are expecting now personalization. It's not an after-ad thought. It's something that customers always expect in all of their engagements with organizations right now, thanks to companies like Amazon and Google and Facebook and others. So in all of their interactions, they're expecting the next best action, the next best recommendations to be given to them so that they can act upon them, as opposed to them seeking those out themselves. The second thing that's happening in the market is what we refer to as dynamic markets, meaning that the change now is happening within different industries at much higher rates than ever before. Consumers are making decisions much more quicker, and they're willing to move between different vendors much quicker. And hence, it's very important to be able to react to that. It's very important to be able to predict that, meaning predict when a customer is thinking about making a change, and being able to recommend to them offers or services that retain them, or new products that appeal to them. So the rate of change is much higher than ever before. And then last but not least is most of the interactions that we get with our customers now, whether that be in consumer space or enterprise space, a large majority of it right now is happening online. And a big part of the decision-making process is also happening online, meaning the customers researching what product they're going to buy, researching the characteristics of it, the reviews on it, etc., etc. And that's happening obviously on the web. It's happening in mobile devices. It's happening everywhere. And organizations need to understand that much more to be able to capture the customer at the right time. So it's really the attention to from the marketing perspective to this. I mean, part of this is us as companies needing to do it, but more importantly, is being imposed to us by our consumers. Our consumers are demanding this, and if we're not reacting to it in the right way, they leave us and they go to somebody else. So Customer 360 is not a new problem. This is actually a problem that existed for many, many years. And the term 360 degrees is really about getting a holistic view of the customer, being able to see the customer from all different angles. And by that, we mean the customer could be consuming many different products. If we are a bank, then they're consuming our checking account service, they're consuming our credit card service, they're consuming our mortgage service, our stock trading service, et cetera, et cetera. So there's many, many services they might be interacting with. And no longer can we retain a silo for each one of these services. We want to get a holistic view of how the customers are interacting with all of these different products and services. And at the same time, the customer can be coming in from many different modes of consumption. They could be coming in on mobile, on a physical branch, on a web browser, on a phone call. There's many, many different ways where they could be engaging with us. So Customer 360 is really about getting a holistic view of the customers from all angles, across all the products and the modes of consumption they might be using us, in order to deliver a consistent, personalized, context-specific, and relevant experience. This is what a typical Customer 360 profile allows us to do as an organization. If we have a good, rich Customer 360 profile, we're able to tell who the customer are. We are able to tell where they are. We are able to see what they have done in the past. We're able to see which content they like and which content they don't like. We are able to see the connection, the social graph, other customers that we have that they might be influenced by. We are able to characterize what they can afford. We are able to characterize how useful is that for the business. And we are able to see the past interactions with the customer, which can change the way that we should be reacting with them right now. And this is just a small sample of the things we're able to do much better by having a rich Customer 360 profile. Another very important trend in the industry is the movement from what we call macro segmentation, which is really defined by the group of things in the upper left corner of the inner box here: age, gender, average spend, a very high level traditional marketing segmentation attributes, right, that we used to segment all of our customers by. And typically we'll end up having maybe 500, 600 segments. The industry is moving away from that, from this macro segmentation, to what's called micro segmentation. And micro segmentation is about still collecting these macro attributes, the demographics, but also collecting a lot more about the customer interaction. How are they consuming the different content? How are they looking at the reviews of different products? Not even buying the products, just looking at the reviews of them. So collecting much more deeper information about the customer interaction to be able to come up with recommendations that are unique to them, that are personalized to them, as opposed to their segment. Because by doing segment targeting, by targeting offers or content or products at the segment, at a very high segment level, at the macro segment level, you end up with a lot of false positives, meaning you end up with a lot of recommendations that are wrong recommendations, just because the customers were lumped in that segment when they don't really act like the rest of that segment. And by aiming to do micro-segmentation and collecting data at a much more granular level of not only transactions, meaning what they bought, but also interactions, meaning what they looked at and what they browsed and what they read about, then we're able to do a much more accurate, personalized targeting of our offers, which obviously increases the conversion rates significantly. We refer to that trend as the micro-segmentation trend. Now, to do Customer 360 properly, there is a number of key challenges that would be addressed throughout this whole talk, and that's why we are advocating the unified data architecture to be able to address these challenges. The first one is we want to be able to bring in all of this data together. And some of that data is transaction data, which is very well defined and structured, but some of it is semi-structured, like log data from mobile apps, XML files, and some of it is unstructured, like email documents or voice transcripts from a customer support engagement, or what people are saying on Twitter or social media. We want to be able to consume all of these different data types, structured, semi-structured, and unstructured together. So that's one of the very key challenges that the unified data architecture tries to address. The second challenge is the volume, the explosion of volume. So obviously, if I'm now logging everything, I'm logging every single interaction, I'm logging every single link you clicked on, every single review you read, and how much time you spent reading it, so I can tell whether it was interesting to you or not. The level of granularity is just way bigger than before, which means the number of bytes that I need to retain and process is way bigger than before, which implies two things. We first need systems that can scale to that amount of much bigger data, which the unified data architecture addresses. But also, we need to be able to balance the economics of how we're doing it. So if I have a lot more bytes because of the granularity being higher, the value per byte is now much lower. And I need to mix and match a system that has a cost that is an overall solution that has a cost that is relatively affordable compared to the value in that byte. Number three, which is the lower left box here, is the new data sources, right? Is that not only do I want to consolidate data from different silos across checking accounts, mortgage accounts, meaning different products and services and credit cards and so on that I might have in my bank if I'm a bank. No, I also want to be able to unify all of the different modes of consumption and modes of interaction. And then last but not least is the cost of data processing, which I alluded to with the data volumes. Data volumes is about scale, but scale from a technology point of view and from balancing the economics of my data as well. So this is what the unified data architecture looks like, and you're going to see this slide come up again and again throughout this presentation. It's no surprise, given the three companies doing the webinar together right now. At the middle, you will have Cloudera, side by side, and that's the enterprise data hub on the left. And then Teradata, the EDW in the middle, and then you will have a metadata management layer from Informatica that coordinates all of that. You do have an analytics component. The analytics component, some of it could be running in the data hub, some of it could be running in the data warehouse, and you will hear more about that throughout the rest of the presentation. The key point of the slide is to show you that by having these systems side by side, you are now able to mix and match any type of data. So you're able to consolidate the silos. You're able to consume every type of data that you have at scale. You're able to process that data at much higher speeds. You're able to do much deeper analytics. And then you're able to feed that data back in different parts of the business depending on what you're doing. You could be doing BI, where you're simply just looking at reporting around your customers. You could be doing actual customer support, where the customer support team is looking to see any issues that customer have so they can reduce churn and help the customer be retained. Or it could be the marketing team now doing actual live applications across these customers to do cross-selling, upselling, recommendations, et cetera, et cetera. So the key point is this unified architecture between the three companies is what enables this grand vision. So this slide, kind of starting from the top and then going towards the bottom, it covers the core technical capabilities and then how they translate into business capabilities. So the core technical capabilities that are enabled by having the unified data architecture is, number one, and sorry for saying this more than one time, but it's good for these messages to stick, the ability to ingest data of any type, right? I'm able to bring in any type of data. I'm not just only constrained to transaction data. And then number two, that I'm able to keep that data around for a very long time securely, right? So because of the scale, because of the cost economics, I'm now able to keep data along for years. So I can go back and look the last time when an earthquake happened, what did people go out and buy? How did their buying behavior change? So I can do these longer term studies whenever I want to. And then the third key capability on the upper right is it's interactive. I'm now able to interact with the data, and I'm able to do self-serve exploration and analysis without having to wait significant amount of time for the data being ingested to be converted from its original format into a format I can consume. No, I can start consuming right away. And that's one of the key agility aspects that this combined solution brings. The next row highlights the higher level services that you can now start doing on a personalization level. I'm able now to do microsegment analytics, like described earlier, because I'm able to capture all my data. I'm able to do more real-time analytics because of the speed at which the system operates. And I'm able to do recommendations at a much higher scale now that looks at purchase behavior and interaction behavior over many, many, many months, if not years. Again, correlating back with the last time when a significant event happened, how did my customers' behavior change? What should I be recommending to them right now? The last row shows you the much deeper understanding you can get about the loyalty of the customers. You can get a much more richer profile, and that richer profile allows you now to predict churn, predict whether the loyalty of the customer is dipping, whether their interaction, their activity, their engagement with you is dipping. And you can do that in real time to be able to go back and give them an offer or give them something or call them up to retain them with you as a customer. Now, this is a very rich slide. I don't expect you to read all of the slide right now during the webinar, but you are getting a copy of the slides and you're able to look at it in detail later on. What this slide stresses is building a rich customer 360 profile is a journey that requires a lot of iteration. You can't just say, hey, I want to build a rich customer 360 profile and within a week have it. No, this is going to be a journey because of the data behind that right now in your organization is probably spread across many, many, many systems. And to be able to create consolidate all of that and create a rich profile takes time. So our recommendation there is always iteration in an agile way. So start with whatever you have. Start with whatever is accessible to you right now. Maybe it's only the transactions. I only have the transactions right now. Start with that. And as you consume that and as you make decisions on top of that, you gradually start to enrich the profile by adding more and more sources into that profile. And the flexibility of the system in terms of taking in data of any type, the flexibility of this architecture allows you to do that in a very agile way. And eventually, after the journey or towards the end of the journey, you will end up with a very, very rich customer profile that will allow you to reap the benefits of much better targeting and much better churn prediction. So I have two use cases that I'm going to cover briefly and then hand off for my section. The first use case is from Marks and Spencer, and this is a very, very traditional use case in the retail industry, where first you're trying to correlate between customers coming to your physical stores with them going on your online stores. You're trying to make better recommendations for the products, and you're trying to minimize what's called abandoned shopping cart behavior. And the only way that you can do that very effectively is, again, by having a very rich customer profile that indicates the interest that they have right now and making recommendations around these immediate interest items. And that's how you get much higher conversion rates, and that's how you reduce the abandoned online shopping cart behavior. The other key thing that we are able to do with this technology by having a much tighter profile is to predict returns as well. Returns themselves are a very heavy cost on the business. When a customer buys something and return it, it's first is an inconvenience for the customer, and second, it's a big cost for the retailer. And by having a much richer profile, we are able to predict returns before they happen and maybe do something about it. Maybe recommend a different product to the customer. But if not, by having the prediction, we are able to optimize the supply chain much better and reduce the cost implications. The next example I have is from Caesars Entertainment. You might have heard of them. They're one of the largest hotel gambling chains in Las Vegas and the world, actually. And gambling definitely was the main source of income for many of these resorts for many years. But now they're getting a lot more bigger share of the income from the different services that they have, the shows that they have, the restaurants that they have, and the bars and so on. So one of the key things that they have been doing, initiatives that they have been doing over the last few years, is again by looking at the customer interaction from the day they arrive into a resort and until they leave. They are able to build a very rich profile about what other services these customers really like besides gambling, so that they can make these recommendations to them and give them offers and get them more engaged with these services, and optimizing the route that they walk actually along the resort at to increase consumption of these services and make it more visible to them. Next slide.
Okay, thank you, Amr. Thank you for describing the... Yeah, thank you for describing the use cases, about micro-segmentation versus macro-segmentation, some of the challenges, introducing us to the unified data architecture and the journey and some of the customer examples. Very useful, very informative, and I think that sets us up for what Todd's going to talk about in terms of going into a bit more detail and describing the unified data architecture for marketing analytics. So Todd, I'd like to hand it off to you.
Thank you very much, John. I strongly agree with Amr that it is a journey. The process of building out the new kinds of analytics, the new kinds of marketing processes is very much a journey, and one which is not just simply install the software and it does everything for you kind of process these days. I like to start the journey in a little bit different place, though. I always like to talk about what it is we're trying to solve before we start putting technology to work. So I like to talk about what the business process, what the business goal is that we're trying to solve, then figure out what kind of decisions need to be made to solve that, then figure out what kind of analytics are necessary in order to make those decisions, then figure out how much data and to what degree that data needs to be integrated and curated, and then figure out where is that data in the organization and pull together the data I need to solve those problems. And then, of course, iterate multiple times to solve the next problem, to solve the next problem, to solve the next problem, always building out a bigger overall data asset for the organization. So what's different in marketing today? We've been talking about Customer 360 across the organization for a long time, but we've been focused on the transactional data and some very basic customer demographics that we could get from more structured sources like their credit history and knowledge about their families and their all those kind of demographics that have been available for some time. So what's different, as Amr absolutely called out, is that the interactions are now available and can now be analyzed and processed to derive more information about the customer and their behavior in the greater ecosystem of the business. Just like we've talked about in Customer 360 for a long time, it's really critical to look at all the channels together. If you look at one channel in isolation, you can't get the big picture of the customer's behavior because you'll, for instance, maybe only be looking at their website behavior and missing completely that they left the website and called the call center or went into a branch and talked to the branch. And so you can't get the big picture of how this customer behaves without looking at all the channels simultaneously. So I thought the best way to pull together the journey was to talk about a real example. This customer, this large financial company, was very interested in doing exactly this 360 view of all of the interactions combined with all of the 360 view they already had from the transactional data and traditional demographics of the organization. So they pulled together data from all of these different channels all together into one place where they could take an overall look at the journey of the customer as they walked through all of the different interactions with the company. But frankly, they thought that this was going to be easier than it turned out to be. They thought that they could just bring the data together into a data store and get started doing analysis. And the truth is that it's much harder than that. So out of their experience, out of their learnings and knowledge, they have developed several steps that they know they need to do for any project now in this kind of area. So step one is just acquire the data. Get it from all the different sources. This is not a trivial process by itself because each system generates the data differently. Each system identifies customers differently. Each system sends in data in a different format. So just acquiring the data, that's a process and a project in and of itself. Then you need to prepare that data for the analysis. Have to prepare that data. People call this the curation process. Have to first identify the customer. Every different channel has a different way of identifying the customer. One channel is using a card number or an account number. Another one is using some customer identity or security value. Another one is using the customer's name. Another one is using the logon ID. So all sorts of different sources of information about who the customer is. So you have to bring all of that together and do the cross-reference of all the customer information. Then you have to sessionize. Sessionize says, okay, what were the process steps that each individual customer went through over a period of time? And then there's another concept a greater concept of sessionizing called sojourn, which says how over multiple sessions, how did this customer interact with us? Because they might look on the website today and 2 days later come in to the branch and 3 days later go back to the website and then sometime after that call the call center. And all of those things are all part of the process of them trying to make a loan application and get out to the end state of actually closing a loan for the organization. Step one and step two are particularly suited for the kind of technologies that people are using for the data lake today. For example, Cloudera is a great example of technology that is really good for doing these heavy lifting kind of processes to gather the data and do the curation of the data in the environment. Then step three is all about doing the discovery, trying to learn what's actually going on, understand the patterns, figure out the patterns, understand the patterns, put them together over these various sessions, see if there is commonality about the ways that a customer goes through the process of trying to understand how to get a loan or how they go through the process of deciding that they no longer want to be a customer of the institution. So these take a whole bunch of new kinds of analytics. In traditional Customer 360, traditional data warehousing, we were all about sums and counts and max and min, and those are really still valuable, but they don't really help with this kind of analysis. You need to be able to do path analysis and graph analysis and text analysis, new kinds of things that were not traditional analytics in a traditional warehouse world. And so you need a set of tools that are capable of performing these new kinds of analytics and being used by the business analysts in the organization. So lots of people can do these analyses and come to conclusions about who they want to address, who do they think are at risk of leaving the bank, who is having trouble getting through the loan process, who should they call back and help out to get to the end goal of completing the loan application, or whatever the business process is that they're trying to solve. Step 4, take action. Too many times these days, people are doing big data projects in the IT area, without having a good link to how they're going to actually operationalize it and derive the real business value from the data and analytics that they're performing. So the really key part, even from the very beginning of the process, is to know how that's going to be deployed and push back into the CRM apps, the call center apps, the BI, the other enterprise applications that drive the interactions with the customers and actually deliver the results of the analytics to these to the customers of the organization. This is the place where the enterprise data warehouse, with all of its links to all of that information and all of the knowledge of customer, product, marketing, past transactions, etc., in the organization, plays a key role in operationalizing the end result of all the cool analytics performed in the previous steps. The process of operationalization really should not be underestimated. It really becomes the Achilles heel of many of the big data implementations that we see these days. As I said before, too many of these projects are being undertaken as IT projects rather than being tightly linked with business outcomes and business goals, and a process by which the business is actually going to act on the results. So it's really key to have that tight link with the business, with a goal, with a operationalization step, and taking the results of the analysis all the way out to the end customer, rather than just continuing to do new analyses and find new insights which don't actually get acted upon, and therefore don't actually return on investment to the company as a whole. I mentioned there's a wide range of analytics that are required to get this done. It's a really rich space these days, and there are lots of tools available. There are lots of tools that are specialties in particular areas like text analytics or machine learning, and there are also some general purpose tools on the market. It's very important to think a lot about what kind of analytics are necessary in order to be able to deliver the business decisions that are required in order to solve the business use cases that are the goal of the implementation. And it's really important also to know and realize that most of these tools don't get used in isolation. It is nice to be able to do some cool text analytics, but the result of text analytics often is then a feed to other analytic processes like path analysis or machine learning or affinity or graph analysis. So each of these feeds the next, and then perhaps they even feed statistical analyses over the results. For instance, you might do a statistical analysis over the result of a path analysis in order to understand commonalities of behavior amongst groups of your customers. And so all of these need to work together, and all of these new analytic algorithms need to be brought into the enterprise in order to be able to solve these new problems using all of this cool new data that we have available to us. We generalize these concepts into the concepts of the data lake for the acquisition and curation and long-term storage of the raw data, the data products area for the operationalization of the results of all of the analytics, and the data R&D area that brings those analytics to bear on all the data, not just the big data, not just the new stuff, but the big data in concert with all of the existing data of the organization. I believe that when you bring in the new big data sources, by themselves, if you analyze those data sources in isolation, those data sources will give you perhaps 10% of the value that could be derived from that information. It's only when you link it with all of what you already know about your customers' products, marketing offers, warranty claims, etc., that you can derive the 100% of the value. And so you really need to be able to tie it all together across the whole organization and all the data stores in your company. And so that leads us back to the architecture slide. It says that you really need one from column A, one from column B, one from column C, at least. We're at a point in the technology in the technology world where one product does not meet all of the requirements of building out this application area. And so you will need to apply multiple technologies, which in turn means that you will need an architecture showing how those tools work together, how they interact with each other, how they share data, how they make data available to users, and how they apply analytics across all of the data of the organization in order to be able to effectively deliver on solving the business problem use cases that you started out the day with. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Todd. Thanks for describing the value of interactions and combined and in addition to the transactions. I especially enjoyed hearing about the process steps of a marketing data lake, how to acquire, prepare, that is, customerize, sessionize, sojournize. Actually, I think you invented a few new words there, so thank you. We'll add that to our to the dictionary. Discovery analysis, operationalize, and taking actions. I thought that was very interesting to hear that it takes 3 times as much effort, to get these into production, and then the range of analytics. Now I'd like to turn it over to Darshan Joshi to describe more about the role of big data management for marketing data lake, big data management being one of the key components in the unified data architecture. So Darshan, go ahead.
Darshan Joshi. Building upon what Amar and Todd talked about, I'll talk about the importance of good big data management software for building marketing data lake. So this is the famous architecture slide we have seen over and over again today. Big data management provides critical functionality to integrate, govern, and secure data for Customer 360, marketing data lake, or any other serious application involving big data. It is part of unified data architecture that includes enterprise data hub, data warehouse, and master data management system. Let's examine some of the key requirements for marketing data lake from IT and business point of view. First thing marketing analysts need to find is the data sets for their analysis within the data lake using the search. Once they find the data sets of interest, they may be interested in the relationships to other data assets and data domains. They'll often be interested in the lineage of the data and where it comes from, in addition to the profiling and previewing the data. Once they feel they can trust the data sets, they can bring it into the Excel-like data preparation tool, prepare the data for analysis such as filtering, aggregating, blending on the fly, what is sometimes referred to as schema on read. To complement the business self-service, it is important to have a big data management foundation that provides IT with the operational agility, with the big data integration, governance, quality, and security. The most important capability to consider in a big data management platform is the ability to ingest all types of data at scale and optimize for performance and resource utilization. The platform should provide flexible deployment such that even if underlying technologies change and evolve, you don't have to rebuild your data supply chain. The platform should be able to integrate, cleanse, match, and deliver data at scale. Finally, data security is very important. First, you need the ability to discover where all your sensitive data is so that you can decide which type of data needs security controls. In addition to enforcing controls for authentication and authorization, you must have the ability to mask and de-identify sensitive data in case of a security breach. An intelligent data platform forms the basis of big data management. The platform architecture and products must be designed to work together with common metadata services. The platform provides connectivity, scalable compute engines optimized for a variety of data types, and multiple latencies, and operation management. Data solutions built on top of intelligent data platform help solve specific business problems related to marketing analysis. Metadata plays a key role in gluing everything together. Let's look into that. A knowledge graph of all enterprise assets, what Informatica calls live data map, is the secret sauce of intelligent data platform and provides the metadata glue and services that power intelligent data products and applications. Any data without metadata is just storage. Live data map is a knowledge repository that is a functional part of the platform. It's not a separate product. The knowledge repository collects metadata from across the platform or other tools and apps. It also collects usage statistics and builds an enterprise-wide rich graph of data assets and the relationships with users and data sources. Once in the repository, metadata can be analyzed, relationships can be discovered, and power searches can be performed. In addition, as LDM powers more apps, you can selectively share their metadata, curated metadata, and custom metadata with other apps on LDM, making LDM even more intelligent. The top layer of our diagram shows various products that will use live data map repository to drive their capabilities. Live data map is already an integral part of data security and intelligent data lake solutions. Let's see how metadata-driven applications like Informatica IDL uses live data map for self-service data discovery and data preparation. The Intelligent Data Lake is a self-service big data preparation and governance solution for data analysts to rapidly discover and turn raw data into insights with quality and governance. You can discover existing data assets and the relationships. You can ingest data into Lake from any source, including applications, databases, device data, weblogs, and social data. In addition, you can upload your own files into the Lake. You can also do rich analysis using Excel-like interface. You can publish your results into Lake or export to external systems like Data Warehouse. You can operationalize your data preparation and blending steps into big data management pipelines known as mappings without ever leaving the Excel-like interface. IT can track usage of resources and manage data governance policies without getting in the way of the business users. Now let's see how IDL can help you create marketing data lake. So this slide here shows a couple of screenshots from Intelligent Data Lake product. Data scientists and analysts can quickly search relevant data sources, assess whether they can trust those data sets by looking at end-to-end lineage and profiles of a data set. You can also view the entire lineage from the source to the target and all the transformations in between, both inside and outside of the Hadoop, both on-prem and in the cloud. Now this screen shows some of the rich Excel-like user interface. The Intelligent Data Lake records each and every step an analyst makes as they prepare the data sets using intuitive Excel-like user interface. These steps are stored in what is called as a recipe, and these recipes can be applied to other data sets and automatically generate big data management mappings that can be scheduled and deployed to run on production environments. This provides a clean transition from exploratory data analysis to production-grade data pipelines. So here I'm showing some of the internal workings of mappings. Ideal users don't need to write mappings. But if IT or data engineers want to tweak these generated mappings, it is very easy to do. Informatica can run the same mappings without any changes in Hadoop, in the cloud, pushed down to databases, or on dedicated ETL servers. When run in Hadoop, you have the choice of running the mapping on a variety of engines such as Hive, Blaze, or Spark. Blaze is our own processing engine run via Yarn within the Hadoop cluster. To boost the productivity by 100x, we introduce dynamic schemas and templates so that you can generate thousands of mappings at runtime based on just a handful of data integration patterns, such as data ingestion. And these templates can handle dynamic schemas commonly found in JSON and XML files in the NoSQL world. Let's talk a little bit about security. Let's also see how big data management helps you protecting and securing your sensitive data. Before you can access, share, or collaborate your data, you need to ensure that all your sensitive data, such as PII and PHI, is secure. The first step is knowing which systems, databases, departments, and geographies contain sensitive data, how it is proliferating across the enterprise, and who is accessing the data, and for what, which may indicate suspicious behavior in many cases. Once you know where your sensitive data resides, you can take steps to protect it using data masking, which de-identifies sensitive data such that even if a security breach were to occur, no sensitive data is exposed. Now let's take a look at some of the real customer use cases implemented using unified data architecture that includes big data management, a Hadoop enterprise data warehouse, and master data management. So I'll talk about 3 use cases. This is the first use case coming from one of nation's leading hospital providers. They are using big data management to ingest and integrate data from a variety of systems such as clinical, electronic medical records, finance, operations, and third-party data. The data is first staged in Hadoop. Then the data is integrated and cleansed to enrich the healthcare provider master data. Then the aggregated data sets are created in the data warehouse for BI reporting related to operational efficiency, clinical quality, and public health reporting. A process that took months can now be completed just within days and provides trusted data with complete transparency of where the data comes from with end-to-end lineage. The second use case is from a large North American telco. This large telco built a marketing data lake to augment their data warehouse to drive more self-service, identify growth opportunities, and improve customer satisfaction. The raw clickstream data from web is staged into Hadoop, where big data management software is used to parse and extract relevant features from the data files containing hundreds of fields. This data is then staged in intermediate tables that feed a large data warehouse. The last use case is Informatica's our own marketing data lake. Informatica's own marketing data lake is built on top of Informatica Big Data Management and Cloudera. We have customers-related data feeds coming from variety of cloud and on-prem sources in variety of formats. Informatica Big Data Management integrates all data, does data quality checks, masters customer data, and makes it available to marketing strategies using Tableau dashboards. IT has full visibility over how data is used. The Tableau dashboards that retrieve data from the data lake are primarily for account-based marketing lead prioritization and campaign attribution to increase marketing ROI. There are also a wide variety of BI reports for account receivable aging, pipeline forecast, and sales demographics. Again, IT has full visibility on how data is used, governed, and secured. So let's summarize what to look for in a big data management platform. Number one, for developer productivity, you need pre-built connectivity, parsers, transformations, and dynamic mappings. For operational agility, you need build once, run and reuse anywhere capability with metadata-driven platform. For faster performance, you need optimized execution, leveraging best of the open source and proprietary innovations. For securing data, you need total visibility and protection mechanisms for sensitive and private data. And finally, for data compliance, you need visibility into data relationships and frameworks for enforcing policies, standards, and regulatory compliance requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Darshan, for giving us those examples and really the role of big data management within a marketing data lake to add more intelligence and automation and to give us some visibility into or insight into some of the architectural patterns. I'd like to thank all of our speakers today and summarize a few of the points that I heard throughout the webinar, which I think are important to remember as you build out your own marketing data lake. One is a customer 360 view powered by data can increase campaign ROI, create personalized experiences, and increase customer loyalty. If you don't do this, your competitors will. The second thing is select the industry leaders. You heard from them today, Cloudera, Teradata, and Informatica as your strategic technology partners to make sure you're successful building out a marketing data lake for 360 customer initiatives. Third is implement a unified data architecture that includes an enterprise data hub to augment the data warehouse, analytics that are built in, big data management and MDM that support the 3 V's of big data, that is, volume, variety, and velocity, along with governance and security. And then also a common metadata. The example that we heard today, Live Data Map, is a platform capability, but also metadata throughout all the other components in Cloudera and Teradata and so on. That common metadata serves as the foundation for an intelligent data platform to help bridge the gap between the business and IT. And now I'd like to allow a little bit of time. We're running, we got about 5 or 7 minutes remaining to get into some Q&A. So as I mentioned at the beginning, you can submit your questions, and you can submit them and then I'll direct them based on what I'm seeing towards the appropriate speaker. So we'll just give a minute here. All right. Okay, I see one question here. Amr, this looks like it's for you. How long before you see value from a marketing data lake? Typically.
So, yeah, that's a very good question. And so the answer is it varies widely. And one of the slides I had in my section, I stressed the importance of agility and iteration. So start with what you have, try to get incremental value right away, and then slowly improve it from there. So if you follow that approach, we typically see when customers first engage, that it takes them about 6 weeks to start getting value out of the system. But then the full journey itself can be as long as 2 years to have like fully leverage all of the customer 360 data.
Okay, thank you. I see another question here. I think I'll direct this one to Todd. This looks like hard work. I thought that capturing data in the data lake would make this all easy. What happened to the easy button?
That's a great question. I think that the data lake makes it possible to deal with all of this new data at the volumes that we've been talking about, but it definitely does not make it easy because we still build the upstream applications without thinking about the back end of the analytics. We still have to do a lot of work to do the things like I was describing about trying to figure out who the customer is for each interaction and understanding what session they're part of and understanding how all of this stuff relates to the traditional data of the enterprise. These are hard pieces of work. I totally agree with Amr about the iterative approach. If you wait until you do and get all of that perfect, you'll be waiting a very long time for results. But you can do it iteratively. You can improve it over time and get results that get better and better over time. But it takes real work today to do that. I was talking to a very young company, a little startup that is learning this the hard way. They went to do some analytics on their mobile app data, and they hadn't bothered to normalize addresses. So right off the top, they had 17 ways of spelling Phoenix, and they had to do a whole bunch of work just to be able to do analysis on interactions that occurred in Phoenix. So these kind of things are still really hard problems that have to be worked through.
Great, thanks, Todd. And here's a question I'll direct towards Darshan. Can Informatica Big Data Management run in the cloud, say on Amazon AWS or Microsoft Azure?
Absolutely. Big Data Management platform can run on AWS or Azure, and it also provides connectivity to both Amazon and Azure data sources and targets, like S3 or Redshift or Azure Blob. In addition, it can also connect you to hundreds of other cloud-based applications and sources like Salesforce.com and so on.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, a lot of good questions here on the Q&A. Here's one I'll direct towards Amr. Yeah, what is the most valuable data that you believe to get started, and where do you suggest landing it in the Enterprise Data Hub?
Yes, so it really varies. It depends on the industry. It depends what your product is. For example, in mobile gaming, the most valuable data is the interaction data. What are people clicking on in the games, so you can get them to engage more in finance. The most valuable data is obviously the transaction data in your trading account or your banking account. So it absolutely is a function of the product. I would say in general, the most valuable data is the data that will have the highest impact in predicting whatever business outcome you're trying to go after, right? So if you're trying to reduce churn, then activity, just general activity, left and right, is going to be very, very predictive of whether you're going to churn that customer or not. So it absolutely is a function of what you're trying to do. It's very hard to generically answer that question and say it's always going to be this type of data.
Okay, thanks, Amr. Let's see. Todd, here's one that's kind of similar. Is where do you get started? There's a lot of components in the unified data. Well, a few different components in the unified data architecture. Where do you recommend getting started?
I always recommend that people start with a goal in mind. What is it we're trying to accomplish? Are we trying to identify why our existing algorithms aren't properly predicting churn? Are we trying to understand how parts are failing, how warranty results are occurring the way they are? Are we trying to understand better how to get a response rate from a marketing offer? But whatever that is where you have to start. And if you try to instead say, well, I'll just build up a giant data pile and hope the organization gets something valuable out of it, the time to value will be much longer because you'll spend a bunch of time just building up data with no goal in mind, rather than picking and choosing which things are important for this goal, and then adding to that iteratively in an agile way as you need more data sources for new problems to solve for the organization.
Great. Thanks, Todd. I think we have time for one more question. Darshan, this is a good one for you. Does Informatica integrate with Cloudera Navigator and Teradata? Could you explain more about that integration?
Absolutely, yes. In fact, if we didn't, we wouldn't be having such a call, right? Informatica does integrate with Cloudera Navigator and Teradata to provide metadata connectivity across the board. Actually, it's part of our strategy to have live data map connectivity, provide end-to-end view and relationship across on-prem and cloud and big data and non-big data.
Great. Thank you, Darshan. Thank you once again to all of our speakers and our audience for your time and participation today. Don't forget to take a look at the assets listed in the Attachments tab. A follow-up email will be sent shortly so you can review the webinar on demand and download today's slides. The webcast will now disconnect. Thank you.